My hands were shaking. Not from fear, no, that ship had sailed weeks ago. They shook from pure, white-hot rage as I stood on the porch of Harbor Rest, watching my daughter-in-law Vanessa's perfectly made-up face twist into something ugly. "This is fraud," she screamed, waving that legal letter in the air like it was on fire. "You can't do this to us, Margaret. This house should be ours." I didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there with my arms crossed, feeling the ocean breeze tangle through my gray hair while she lost her mind on my property. My property. Those two words had never felt so sweet. Behind her, my son Gregory looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. His face was pale, his eyes darting between his wife and me like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Good. Let him squirm. Let him feel even a fraction of what I'd felt when I discovered what they'd tried to do. "The lawyers will hear about this," Vanessa hissed, her designer heels clicking against the wooden deck. "You're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy." I almost laughed. Almost. But I kept my voice steady, calm as the tide behind me. "The lawyers already know, sweetheart. They're the ones who helped me write that letter you're holding." The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might actually faint. Gregory took a step back, and I saw it then, the moment he realized I knew everything. Every forged signature, every hush phone call, every greedy little plan they'd whispered about in the dark. They thought they'd stolen my home. But I'd been waiting for this day. You see, betrayal doesn't always come from strangers wearing masks. Sometimes it grows right at your own dinner table, smiling at you over Sunday roast, complimenting your cooking while plotting to take everything you have left. Sometimes it comes from the son you raised, the boy you taught to ride a bike and tie his shoes, now standing silent while his wife tries to rob you blind. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, really trusted them, given them your heart and your home and your hope, then you know this feeling. That sick, hollow ache when you realize the monster wasn't hiding under the bed. It was sitting across from you at breakfast. The worst part? I'd seen it coming. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to make me wonder if I was being paranoid. Enough to make me question my own instincts when Vanessa's smiles never quite reached her eyes. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. I wasn't just fighting for my home that day on the porch. I was fighting for every widow who'd been underestimated. Every mother who'd been manipulated by a child she'd sacrificed everything for. Every woman who'd been told she was too old, too emotional, too weak to fight back. Vanessa was still talking, her voice climbing higher with each word, but I'd stopped listening. I was remembering instead. Remembering Harold's face the day he showed me those land deeds he'd hidden away. Remembering the way he'd squeezed my hand and said, "This is our future, Maggie girl. Our peace." Remembering how I'd scattered his ashes in the very ocean I could hear crashing behind me now. They wanted to take that from me. My last piece of Harold. My last bit of peace. Over my dead body. Gregory finally found his voice. "Mom, please. Let's just talk about this." Vanessa didn't mean. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Don't you dare tell me what she meant, Gregory Michael Holloway. I raised you better than this. His mouth snapped shut. For just a second, I saw my little boy again, the one who used to hide behind my legs when he was scared, who cried in my arms when his goldfish died. Then Vanessa grabbed his arm, and the moment shattered like glass. "We're leaving," she announced, like she was doing me a favor. "But this isn't over, Margaret. Not by a long shot." I watched them storm off to their car, Vanessa's heels stabbing the ground with each furious step. The engine roared to life, and gravel sprayed as they peeled out of my driveway like teenagers throwing a tantrum. The silence that followed was deafening. I sank into Harold's old rocking chair, the one I'd dragged all the way from our first apartment, and finally let myself breathe. The letter was still clutched in my hand, my copy of the welcome that had destroyed their scheme in one elegant, legal blow. They thought they were so clever. Thought they could forge my signature, transfer the deed, and I'd be too grief-stricken and confused to notice until it was too late. They thought I was just some lonely old widow who'd roll over and accept whatever scraps they threw my way. They forgot one crucial thing. Lonely doesn't mean stupid. And grief doesn't mean weak. I wasn't just fighting for my home. I was fighting to remind everyone who they were dealing with. Because Margaret Holloway didn't survive 53 years of marriage, 3 miscarriages, a son with colic, and Harold's long goodbye to cancer just to be pushed around by a woman who thought designer bags made her royalty. But here's what they didn't know yet. What nobody knew except me and my lawyer. That letter Vanessa had been waving around? That was just the beginning. The real storm was still coming, building on the horizon like a hurricane they never saw coming. And I was going to enjoy every single second of watching it hit. 6 months earlier, I'd been standing in a different kind of silence. The kind that fills a house when someone's gone forever. Harold's clothes still hung in the closet. His reading glasses sat on the nightstand, waiting for eyes that would never open again. The whole house smelled like him. Old Spice and coffee and 53 years of memories soaking into the walls. I couldn't stay there. Every corner whispered his name, and the whispers were killing me. That's when I found the box in his study. Tucked behind his collection of fishing magazines and underneath a stack of tax returns from 1987, there was a manila envelope with my name written in his shaky handwriting. The handwriting from after the diagnosis, when his hands had started to betray him. Inside were land deeds. 3 of them. Coastal properties he'd bought over the years without telling me. Little investments he'd made, squirreling away pieces of our dream while I thought we were just scraping by. There was a note, too. Just 4 words in his terrible scrawl. Build our peace, Maggie girl. I cried so hard I thought I'd break in half. He'd known. Known he was leaving me. Known I'd need something to hold on to. Known I'd need a reason to keep breathing when the bed felt too empty and the morning stretched too long. So I sold 1 property. Kept another for Gregory. Though God, how I wish I'd known then what I know now. And the 3rd? I used every penny to buy Harbor Rest. It wasn't much when I first saw it. A fixer-upper perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, with peeling paint and a porch that groaned when you walked across it. But it had good bones, and it had a view that made my heart stop. Sunrise over the ocean, waves crashing against rocks, seagulls crying overhead like they were singing Harold home. I bought it the same day I saw it. Moving in was torture and therapy all at once. Every box I unpacked felt like I was choosing to live again. Every picture I hung on the wall was a tiny rebellion against the grief trying to drown me. I put Harold's photo on the mantel, the one from our 20th anniversary, where his smile was so big it looked like his face might crack. Some nights I'd sit in front of it with a glass of wine and just talk. Tell him about the weird neighbors, about the leak in the bathroom, about how I'd finally figured out the fancy coffee maker he bought me 3 Christmases ago. The house became mine. Our house, really, built on his secret dreams and my stubborn refusal to give up. I thought I was buying peace, healing, a place to remember him without drowning in the memories. I didn't know I was inviting a storm. Gregory came to visit a month after I'd settled in. Brought Vanessa, of course. They'd only been married 8 months, and I was still trying to figure out who this woman was that had somehow erased the son I knew and replaced him with this stranger who said, "we" instead of "I," and checked with his wife before ordering dessert. They pulled up in her car, some sleek black thing that probably cost more than my first house, and I watched from the kitchen window as Vanessa stepped out. Designer sunglasses, tailored pants, heels that had no business being worn to a beach house. She looked around like she was evaluating real estate, not visiting her mother-in-law. That should have been my first clue. "Mom, this place is amazing." Gregory hugged me, and for a second I had my boy back. "You really did it. Dad would be so proud." But Vanessa just smiled. A tight little smile that didn't touch her eyes, didn't warm her face, didn't mean a damn thing. "It's quaint," she said, running one manicured finger along the porch railing. "Very rustic." Quaint. Rustic. Code words for not good enough for me. I should have thrown her out right then. But she was my son's wife, and I'd been raised to give people chances. To assume the best. to turn the other cheek and keep the peace and all those other things good Christian women are supposed to do even when every instinct is screaming danger. Have you ever felt someone's fake smile before? That cold, calculated expression that's designed to fool everyone except the person it's aimed at? Comment, I know that look, if you've ever been on the receiving end of that kind of smile. We had dinner that night. I'd made pot roast, Harold's favorite, and homemade rolls that took me 3 hours to get right. Gregory ate like he was starving, praising every bite. Vanessa pushed food around her plate and talked about carbs. So, Mom, Gregory said between bites, what's the plan with this place? Just a vacation home, or? It's home, I said simply. I'm selling the old house. Too many ghosts. Vanessa's eyes sharpened. Just for a second, but I saw it. The way a cat's eyes sharpen when it spots a mouse. That's a big decision, she said carefully. You're sure you want to be all alone out here? So far from family. Family. She said it like she cared. Like she was worried about poor old Margaret all by herself in her little beach shack. But when I looked at Harbor Rest, I didn't see alone. I saw Harold in every sunset. I saw peace in every wave. I saw freedom in every morning I woke up without the weight of all that grief pressing down on my chest. When I saw the way she looked at Harbor Rest that weekend, calculating, measuring, wanting, I knew she saw something different. She didn't see my home. She didn't see Harold's dream. She didn't see 53 years of love poured into one last beautiful place. She saw dollar signs, opportunity, something she wanted and intended to have. And I realized right then, standing in my kitchen while my son's wife mentally appraised my property like she already owned it, that I hadn't invited family to visit. I'd invited a predator into my home. Vanessa Mitchell, that was her maiden name, though she dropped it faster than a hot pan once she got Gregory to propose. Came for money. Or, at least, she came from people who acted like they had money. Her parents lived in one of those suburban McMansions with columns out front that served no purpose except to scream, "We're fancy." Her mother wore pearls to the grocery store. Her father drove a Lexus he couldn't quite afford and complained about taxes at every family gathering. They'd raised Vanessa to believe she deserved the finer things. Designer bags, exotic vacations, a husband who could provide the lifestyle she'd become accustomed to, or better yet, upgrade it. Gregory, bless his heart, was a decent man with a decent job. Middle management at a tech company, good benefits, solid salary. But he wasn't rich. Not Vanessa-level rich. Not, buy whatever you want without checking the price tag, rich. I'd watched her slowly change him over their 2 years of dating and 8 months of marriage. Watched my practical, level-headed son start worrying about brands and image, and keeping up with people who frankly weren't worth keeping up with. He'd always been a little soft, my Gregory. Easy to influence. Eager to please. As a kid, he'd been the one who brought home every stray cat in the neighborhood because he couldn't stand to see anything suffer. Sweet, but weak when it came to standing up for himself. Vanessa had spotted that weakness like a shark smelling blood in the water. I'd tried to love her anyway. Really, I had. Invited her to family dinners, asked about her work at the marketing firm, complimented her outfits even when they looked more expensive than my monthly mortgage. But there was something missing in her. Some essential human thing that makes you care about other people more than you care about things. I'd see it in the way she talked about her friends. Always comparing, always competing, always measuring who had more. At Gregory's birthday dinner, 3 months before they visited Harbor Rest, she'd made a joke about inheritance. We were eating cake, and she'd laughed, that tinkling, artificial laugh she used when she wanted everyone to think she was being playful. Well, Gregory's an only child, she'd said, squeezing his arm. So, at least we don't have to split the estate when the time comes. Everyone laughed. It was supposed to be funny, a harmless comment, but her tone wasn't joking. And her eyes weren't laughing. They were calculating, already counting money that wasn't hers, dividing up a life that was still very much being lived. I'd felt ice water dump down my spine. Gregory had just smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. But I'd caught him later, parroting some phrase Vanessa always used, investing in our future, or building our portfolio, or some other corporate nonsense that didn't sound like my son at all. He was disappearing. The boy I'd raised was slowly being erased, replaced by this anxious, people-pleasing version who couldn't make a decision without checking with his wife first. If this were your house, would you trust her? Would you let someone like Vanessa through your door, or would you bolt it shut and throw away the key? Tap subscribe if you want to see how this story ends. That weekend at Harbor Rest showed me just how deep the rot had spread. They'd arrived Friday evening, all smiles and hugs and promises to help me get settled. But by Saturday morning, I could hear them through the walls of my little beach house. Voices carrying through the vents, thinking I was still asleep. Look at this place, Greg. It's on premium coastal land. Do you know what this is worth? Mom loves it here. It makes her happy. She's 72 years old. How much longer is she really going to enjoy it? We could renovate, flip it, make a fortune. Or better yet, keep it as our vacation home. Think about it, beach house, no mortgage, pure profit. Vanessa, we can't just. Can't what? Plan for our future? Your father left her plenty. She doesn't need this much space. It's wasteful. That word. Wasteful. Like my grief, my memories, my right to live where I chose was somehow an inefficient use of resources. I didn't confront them that morning. Didn't storm in and defend myself like I should have. Instead, I lay in Harold's old sleeping shirt, staring at the ceiling, feeling my heart crack right down the middle. Because the voice I'd heard agreeing, weakly, guiltily, but agreeing, was my son's. By Sunday, Vanessa's disdain had evolved into something more dangerous. She'd started making suggestions. You know, Margaret, this porch is a safety hazard. One bad storm, and you could get hurt out here. Have you thought about what would happen if you fell? So far from a hospital. The stairs are awfully steep. At your age, that's a real concern. It must be lonely here. No neighbors for miles. What if something happened? Every concern dripped with false sweetness. Every worry wrapped in a bow of fake love. She was building a case. Planting seeds. Making everyone around her believe that poor old Margaret shouldn't be living alone in her dangerous little house, so far from family. She was setting the stage. If you've ever felt someone's fake smile before, that cold, calculated expression designed to fool everyone except the person it's aimed at, then you know what I was dealing with. You know how it feels to see the mask slip, just for a second, and glimpse the monster underneath. That last night, I made their favorite meals. Set the table with Harold's good dishes. Poured wine I couldn't really afford. Tried one more time to connect with this woman my son had married. Vanessa smiled and complimented and played the perfect daughter-in-law while her eyes kept drifting to the windows, to the view, to the house she'd already decided should be hers. When I saw the way she looked at Harbor Rest, not with appreciation or happiness or even envy, but with ownership, with entitlement, with absolute certainty that what was mine would soon be hers, I knew she wanted more than a visit. She wanted everything, and she'd already figured out how to take it. They came back 4 weeks later, called ahead this time, all polite and proper, asking if they could spend a long weekend at Harbor Rest. Family time, Vanessa said. A chance to really relax and reconnect. I should have said no. Should have trusted my gut, that sick, twisted feeling that told me something bad was coming. But Gregory sounded so hopeful on the phone. So much like his old self. And I was still clinging to the fantasy that maybe I'd imagined the worst of it. Maybe I'd misheard those whispers through the walls. Hope makes us stupid. Remember that. They arrived Friday afternoon with enough luggage for a month. Vanessa had bought new outfits. I could tell by the tags still attached to some of them. Beach casual, she called it. Clothes that cost more than my first car, designed to look effortless. We brought wine, Gregory said, hefting a box of bottles that probably cost $100 each. Figured we could have some nice dinners, watch the sunset, really enjoy the place. Vanessa was already inside, heels clicking across my hardwood floors like she owned them. I brought some decorating magazines, she called out. Thought maybe we could look at ideas for freshening up the space. Freshening up. Like my house was stale bread. That weekend was a masterclass in manipulation. Vanessa never said anything obviously cruel, never crossed a line you could point to and call her out on. But everything, every single thing, was a calculated dig wrapped in concern. This furniture is so vintage. Very lived in. Have you thought about updating? Something more modern might be easier to maintain at your age. The kitchen's adorable, but so small. Don't you find it hard to move around in here? With your knees and all. Gregory and I were talking about how isolated you must feel. All alone, no one to talk to. It's not healthy, Margaret. She said my name like it tasted bad. Saturday night, I made cocoa vin. Took me all day. Harold's recipe, the one he'd perfected over 30 years of trying. The house smelled like heaven. Wine and herbs and butter and home. Vanessa ate 3 bites and pushed her plate away. It's lovely, but I'm watching my figure. Beach season, you know. It was October. There was no beach season. Gregory ate everything and asked for seconds, but I saw the way he glanced at his wife before accepting. Asking permission without words. My grown son, asking permission to enjoy his dead father's recipe. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind was howling outside, making the house creak and settle like it always did. Beautiful, lonely sounds that usually comforted me. But then I heard voices. The guest room was right above my bedroom. Old house, thin walls, sound traveled like water through the pipes. I never thought much of it before. Why would I? But now I lay there in the dark, listening to my son and daughter-in-law whisper about me like I was already dead. It's wasted on her. Vanessa's voice, sharp even when quiet. She's old, Greg. She doesn't need this much space. She doesn't even use half these rooms. She loves it here. It's where she feels close to Dad. Your father's gone. He's not coming back. And her grief doesn't get to derail our future. Silence. The kind where you know someone's trying to find words to argue but can't. We could list her old house, use that money to buy something nice for us, and move her into assisted living. Somewhere with people her own age. She'd be safer. We'd have the beach house. Everyone wins. She's not going into assisted living. Mom's healthy, she's sharp, for now. But how long? Another year? 5? Why should we wait for our inheritance when we could be building our life now? My tears fell quietly that night, soaking Harold's pillow, the one I still couldn't bring myself to wash because it was the last thing that smelled like him. My heart was breaking so slowly, I could feel each individual crack spreading through my chest. But my mind didn't stay still. Because Vanessa was right about one thing. I wasn't young. I'd lived 7 decades, survived cancer, buried my husband, and raised a son who apparently couldn't wait for me to die so he could claim his prize. But being old didn't mean being helpless. And grief didn't mean giving up. I lay there in the dark, listening to them plan my obsolescence, and something cold and hard settled in my stomach. Something that felt like steel wrapped in righteousness. I didn't confront them the next morning. Didn't let on that I'd heard a single word. Instead, I made pancakes and smiled and asked about their plans for the day. Vanessa wanted to explore the town. Scout out restaurants, she said. In case we decide to host here sometime. In case. Like it was already decided. They left after lunch Sunday, all hugs and thank yous and promises to visit again soon. Gregory looked guilty, kept hugging me too long, like he was trying to squeeze out an apology he didn't have the guts to say out loud. Vanessa just smiled. That same cold, calculated smile that said she'd already won. But she hadn't. She'd just shown me exactly who she was. And I was done pretending I didn't see it. Because I didn't confront them that weekend. I didn't fight or argue or defend myself. I started planning instead. The envelope arrived 3 weeks later. Plain Manila, return address from a law firm I'd never heard of, documents inside with my name on them. Transfer of property deed. Harbor Rest. From Margaret Ann Holloway to Gregory Michael Holloway and Vanessa Marie Holloway. My signature at the bottom. Bold and confident. Exactly like I'd signed it 1,000 times before. Except I'd never signed this document. Never even seen it before that moment. I stood in my kitchen, Mail scattered across the counter, and felt the floor drop out from under me. The room spun. My hands went numb. Somewhere far away, I could hear the ocean, but it sounded like screaming. They'd forged my signature. My own son, or his wife more likely, had forged my name and tried to steal my house right out from under me. The betrayal hit like a physical thing, like someone had reached inside my chest and ripped out everything that mattered. Because this wasn't just about property or money, or even the house itself. This was my son saying I didn't matter. That my life, my choices, my grief, my right to live where I chose, none of it was as important as what he wanted. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor, that document crumpled in my shaking hands, and cried like I hadn't cried since the day they lowered Harold into the ground. He'd been gone 14 months. 14 months of waking up alone and learning to cook for one and having conversations with a photograph because the silence was too heavy to bear. And now the son we'd raised together, the boy we'd loved more than breathing, had tried to rob me of the last piece of peace I had left. Would you fight back or forgive? If your own child betrayed you like this, stole from you, lied to you, treated you like an obstacle instead of a person, what would you do? Tell me in the comments, because I need to know I'm not crazy for what I did next. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to shift, for the tears to dry salt sticky on my face, for the shock to slowly transform into something else. Rage. Pure, cristalline, raitias rage. I pulled myself up, legs shaking, and went to the mantel. Harold's photo smiled at me, that big, goofy grin from our 20th anniversary, back when we were young and stupid and thought we'd live forever. They forgot something, I whispered to his picture. They forgot who I am. Because I wasn't always old. Once upon a time, I'd been the girl who talked her way into college when everyone said girls didn't need education. I'd been the woman who balanced our checkbook to the penny when Harold's business was failing. I'd been the mother who fought the school board when they tried to hold Gregory back in 3rd grade because he learned differently. I'd fought for everything I had, everything we built, every single piece of the life that led me here. And I'd be damned if I'd stop fighting now. I called my lawyer Monday morning. Not the family attorney who'd helped us with wills and estate planning. He was too close, too likely to try talking me into forgiving family. I needed someone new. Someone sharp. Someone who understood that sometimes justice mattered more than peace. Margaret Brennan, no relation, but the shared name felt like fate, was a property attorney with a reputation for being ruthless. Women called her when their ex-husbands tried to cheat them in divorce. Kids called her when their siblings tried to steal their inheritance. People called her when playing nice had failed, and war was the only option left. Mrs. Holloway, she said after I'd explained everything, I need you to understand something. If we fight this, it's going to get ugly. Family cases always do. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Gregory's face through the years. First day of kindergarten. High school graduation. His wedding day, when I'd cried and told him I'd never seen him happier. The last time he'd hugged me, guilty and too tight, knowing what he'd done. My son already made it ugly, I said. I'm just making it official. We spent 3 hours going over options. The forged signature was obvious, easy to prove. We could prosecute, press charges, send Vanessa to jail and Gregory along with her, if we pushed hard enough. But that wasn't what I wanted. Jail felt too easy. Too quick. Too simple for what they'd tried to do. I wanted them to understand. To feel what I felt. To know, deep in their bones, that you don't steal from the people who love you and walk away smiling. Can you create a trust? I asked. Something ironclad. Something they can't touch or challenge or weasel out of. Margaret Brennan smiled. Sharp and knowing. The smile of a woman who'd seen every dirty trick in the book and knew how to play them all. The Holloway Trust has a nice ring to it. We worked on it for 2 weeks. Every detail perfect. Every loophole closed. Every word chosen to twist the knife just right. They thought they could steal with ink. They thought forging my signature would be enough, that I'd be too confused or too weak or too trusting to notice. They forgot who taught Gregory how to sign his name in the first place, who drilled him on cursive all through third grade when his teacher said he'd never master it, who helped him practice autographs when he got his first checking account. They forgot I'd know his handwriting anywhere, even when he tried to disguise it as mine. So I called my lawyer, and together we built something beautiful. A trap disguised as a gift. A lesson wrapped in legal language, so tight they'd choke on it. The game began the moment Margaret Brennan filed those papers. The moment the trust became official and Harbor Rest stopped being just my property and became something else entirely. Something they couldn't have. Something they couldn't steal. Something that would teach them exactly what happens when you underestimate a quiet old woman with nothing left to lose. The invitation went out 2 weeks after the trust was finalized. Handwritten, on the nice stationery Harold had bought me for our 50th anniversary. The kind of paper that said this matters, pay attention, this is important. Dearest Gregory and Vanessa, I wrote in my careful script. I've been thinking about family and the future. I'd love to have you both back at Harbor Rest for the weekend. There's something I want to discuss with you. Love always, Mom. Vanessa called within an hour. I'd never heard her sound so eager. Margaret, how wonderful to hear from you. We'd absolutely love to come visit. Gregory's been worried about you, all alone out there. When were you thinking?
Worried. Right.
Worried I'd notice the forged documents before they could make them stick. Next weekend, I suggested, stirring my tea like we were planning a book club meeting instead of an execution. Friday through Sunday? I'll make pot roast. Perfect. We'll be there Friday evening. And Margaret? Thank you for reaching out. Family is so important. I hung up and looked at Harold's photo on the mantel. She has no idea what's coming, I whispered. None at all. Margaret Brennan had done her job beautifully. The Holloway Trust was a work of art, legally binding, completely unbreakable, designed to protect Harbor Rest from anyone who might try to claim it through fraud or manipulation or forged signatures. But the real genius was in the details. The clauses. The conditions. The welcome gift I'd prepared for my greedy daughter-in-law. That week crawled by like winter molasses. I cleaned the house until it sparkled, bought fresh flowers for the guest room, made sure everything looked perfect, peaceful, normal. She thought she was walking into her new home, walking into the future she'd planned, the life she decided was hers for the taking. She had no idea she was walking into her lesson. Friday evening arrived with fog rolling in off the ocean. Appropriate somehow, like the universe was setting the stage, hiding the sharp edges until just the right moment. They pulled up at 6:30, right on time. Gregory looked nervous, kept adjusting his collar, glancing at Vanessa like he was waiting for instructions. She looked triumphant, practically glowing with anticipated victory. Mom, Gregory hugged me tight. Too tight. Guilty tight. Thanks for having us. The place looks great. Vanessa air-kissed my cheeks, her perfume expensive enough to make my eyes water. Margaret, you're looking well. We brought champagne. Thought we could celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked innocently. Family, she said smoothly. Just family. Dinner was perfect. I'd outdone myself. Pot roast so tender it fell apart, roasted vegetables, homemade rolls still warm from the oven. The kind of meal that says I love you in every bite. Gregory ate like always, praising everything. Vanessa picked at her food and talked about their plans, vacation they wanted to take, car she wanted to buy, house renovations she was dreaming about. Of course, all of that depends on our finances, she said carefully, watching me over her wine glass. Investments. Future planning. Making sure we're set up for the long term. I just smiled and poured more wine. After dinner, she excused herself to unpack. I heard her in the guest room above, those designer heels clicking around like she was measuring the space, planning where her furniture would go. You won't believe what's inside that letter I left for her. The envelope that's sitting on the kitchen table right now, white and innocent, labeled welcome gift in my best handwriting. Gregory helped me with dishes, quiet and tense. Mom, I need to tell you something. Later, sweetheart. I cut him off gently. Let's just enjoy the evening first, because I knew what he wanted to say. Could see the confession sitting heavy on his tongue, making him miserable. Part of me, the mother part, the part that still remembered rocking him to sleep when he had nightmares, wanted to let him off the hook. But the rest of me remembered those whispers through the walls. Remembered his weak agreement when his wife called my home wasteful. Remembered that forged signature on documents designed to steal my peace. So I smiled and dried dishes and waited. When Vanessa came back downstairs, changed into loungewear that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, she spotted the envelope immediately. "What's this?" She picked it up, curious, already opening it before I could answer. And as she unpacked her designer luggage upstairs earlier, while she'd been clicking around in those ridiculous heels planning her future in my house, I placed that envelope on the kitchen table. Welcome gift. 2 words that would change everything. Vanessa's perfectly manicured nails slid under the envelope flap. The paper tore with a whisper, loud as thunder in my quiet kitchen. She pulled out the letter, 3 pages, legal language, Margaret Brennan's letterhead at the top, and started reading out loud. Probably couldn't help herself. Probably thought it was going to be something sentimental. A grandmother's blessing. Permission to take what she'd already decided was hers. The Holloway Trust, established by Margaret and Holloway on October 3rd, 2025, in perpetuity. Her voice was light, casual, right up until she hit the 3rd paragraph. Then she stopped. Just stopped mid-sentence, her face going pale under all that expensive makeup. "What is this?" The words came out strangled. Gregory moved closer, trying to read over her shoulder.
Mom?
"What's going on?" I stayed where I was, leaning against the counter, holding Harold's photo in my hands. For strength. For courage. For the reminder that I was doing this for both of us. "Keep reading," I said quietly. "It gets better." Her hands shook as she continued, voice dropping to barely a whisper. "All property known as Harbor Rest, located at 47 Cliff Road, including all structures, land, and holdings therein, is hereby placed in irrevocable trust. Said property cannot be sold, transferred, gifted, or claimed by any heir or family member for a period of 50 years following the trustor's death." 50 years. Vanessa's voice cracked. "You're 72. That means by the time anyone can touch this house, you'll be dead too," I finished calmly. "Or at least too old to enjoy it. Funny how that works." Gregory's face had gone white. "Mom, please tell me this is a joke." "Does it look like a joke?" I gestured at the legal documents Vanessa was clutching like they might catch fire. "Keep reading, sweetheart. The best part's coming up." Vanessa's eyes darted down the page, and I watched realization dawn like a nightmare sunrise. In the event of attempted fraud, forgery, or theft of said property by any party, the trustor reserves the right to transfer Harbor Rest to a charitable organization of her choosing, effective immediately, with no contestation permitted. She looked up, and for the first time since I'd met her, that perfect mask cracked completely.
Fear.
Real, raw fear behind that polished exterior. "You know," she breathed, "about the forged documents?" I smiled. It felt good.
Cold and sharp and exactly right.
"Oh, honey, I've known for weeks. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize my own signature? Or my son's handwriting when he tried to copy it?" Gregory staggered back like I'd hit him. "I didn't. Vanessa said you wouldn't mind, that you'd want us to have it eventually anyway. So you decided to take it now?" My voice stayed level, calm, deadly quiet. "While I'm still alive. While I'm still living here. You thought you could just steal my home and I'd what? Thank you for it. If that moment gave you chills, hit like. Because karma's not done yet. Not even close." For a moment, one perfect, crystalline moment, I saw the fear behind Vanessa's perfect smile. The panic of someone who'd been so certain of victory, so confident in her manipulations, suddenly realizing she'd miscalculated badly. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, recovering fast. Anger rushing in to cover the fear. "You can't do this. That house was supposed to be Gregory's inheritance. We had plans. Your plans don't interest me." I set Harold's photo down gently, giving him one last smile before turning my full attention to them. What interests me is that my son, my only child, the boy I carried and raised and loved, tried to steal from me. What interests me is that you, Vanessa, came into my home with fake smiles and fake concern while plotting to push me out of the only place I have left to feel close to my husband. We weren't pushing you out, Gregory tried weakly. We just thought. You thought I was too old and too stupid to notice. You thought grief made me weak. You thought I'd just roll over and let you take whatever you wanted, because family's supposed to forgive family, right? The silence was crushing. There's more, I continued, nodding at the letter still clutched in Vanessa's shaking hands. The trust includes a clause about attempted rental or sale of the property. If anyone tries to profit from harbor rest without my explicit written permission, the house transfers immediately to a marine conservation charity. They'll tear it down and turn it into protected wetlands. No house. No profit. Nothing. Vanessa's jaw dropped. You're bluffing. Call my lawyer. I pulled out Margaret Brennan's card, set it on the table. Her number's right there. She's expecting you might call, actually. She thought this part would be fun. Gregory sank into a chair, head in his hands. Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant. Vanessa said it was just paperwork, that we were helping you plan ahead. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't you dare blame this all on her, Gregory. You signed those documents. You listened through the walls while she called my home wasteful. You stood silent while she calculated my worth, like I was livestock ready for auction. You may not have started this, but you sure as hell didn't stop it. His guilt was palpable, thick enough to choke on. But Vanessa? She was still fighting, still calculating, still looking for an angle. You'll regret this, she hissed, standing up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. We're family. You're going to die alone in this house with no one who cares about you, and it'll be your own fault. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. Maybe, I said softly, but I'll die in my own home, on my own terms, knowing I didn't let you take the last piece of my husband from me. And Vanessa? That's more than enough. She wanted to say more. I could see it building behind her eyes, all that rage and frustration and thwarted greed boiling over. But Gregory grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the door. We're leaving, he muttered. Mom, I will talk later. Will we? I asked. Because I think we've said everything that needs saying. They left. Vanessa stormed out first, heels stabbing the porch with every furious step. Gregory followed slower, looking back once with eyes so full of shame and regret I almost called him back. But I didn't, because some lessons have to hurt to stick. I watched their car disappear down the driveway, taillights blinking through the fog like dying embers. And then I went back inside, locked the door, and finally let myself shake apart. Because winning doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like surviving something that should have killed you. But I was still standing, still in my home, still breathing Harold's air and watching his ocean. And oh, I doubted very much that I'd regret it. For 3 weeks after that night, silence. No calls from Gregory. No screaming messages from Vanessa. Nothing but the waves and the seagulls and my own thoughts. I told myself I was fine, that I'd done the right thing, that protecting my home and my dignity mattered more than a relationship that was already broken. Most days I even believed it. Vanessa's pride collapsed in stages. I heard about it through the grapevine, Gregory's old friend Tom, who still called me sometimes to check in. She tried to pretend nothing had happened. Showed up at their usual restaurants, their social events, smiling and laughing like her world hadn't just imploded. But people talk. Lawyers talk. And somehow the story of a daughter-in-law who tried to forge documents and steal her mother-in-law's house spread through their social circle like wildfire. The invitations dried up. The friend group got quieter. Vanessa's perfect image, the one she'd spent years cultivating, cracked right down the middle. Gregory called once. Left a voicemail I still can't bring myself to delete. Mom, I know you're angry. I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this. Vanessa says if I keep trying to contact you, she'll leave me. But you're my mom, and I miss you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I listened to it 17 times that first day. Cried through most of them. But I didn't call back. Because sorry doesn't unforge a signature. Sorry doesn't erase those whispers through the walls. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust that's been burned to ash. I send them home to rest. I told Tom when he called asking if I was okay. They needed space to think about what they'd done. But snakes don't rest. They coil up and wait for another chance to strike. Would you call the cops or stay silent? Would you let this go? Or would you make sure they learned their lesson all the way? Let's see your take in the comments. For weeks after the confrontation, I got a call from a woman named Jennifer. Said she'd rented my house on a vacation website for 2 weeks, paid $3,000 up front, and was standing on my porch with her family wondering why the key code didn't work. My blood turned to ice. I didn't list my house anywhere. The listing says Harbor Rest, 47 Cliff Road. Owner Vanessa Holloway. It's been up for 3 months with great reviews. We drove 6 hours to get here, and now you're saying. I hung up and called the police. They arrived 30 minutes later. 2 officers, young and professional, with Jennifer and her confused family still sitting in their rental car in my driveway. Ma'am, do you have proof you own this property? The older officer asked. I showed them everything. The deed. The trust documents. My driver's license with this address. Utility bills in my name. Jennifer pulled up the listing on her phone and there it was. My house. My photos. The ones I'd sent Gregory when I first moved in. My view. My porch. My life listed for rent under Vanessa's name. She's been doing this for weeks, Jennifer said, angry and tired, and out $3,000. The listing has 25 reviews. All 5 stars. People saying what a great host Vanessa was, how beautiful the property is, how relaxing their stay was. Except no one had ever stayed here. No one except me, alone with my grief and my ocean and my memories. Vanessa had been listing my house, collecting money from people who thought they were renting a legitimate vacation property. And then what? Canceling at the last minute? Making excuses? Keeping the deposits? It was fraud.
Pure, calculated, prosecutable fraud.
The police took my statement, took Jennifer's evidence, told me they'd be in touch, and that I should contact my lawyer immediately. Mrs. Holloway, one officer said as they were leaving, his face grim, we've seen this before. Family members trying to profit off property they don't own. Usually ends in arrest warrants. I stood on my porch long after they'd gone, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold and red and violent purple. And I thought about Gregory's voicemail, about his weak apologies and weaker spine, about how even after everything, after the confrontation, after the trust, after I'd drawn a line so clear even a blind person could see it, Vanessa had still tried again. She'd looked at my mercy as weakness, my silence as permission, my refusal to destroy them completely as an invitation to keep stealing. She'd forgotten one crucial thing. Patient doesn't mean powerless. Police arrived with renters at Margaret's door. Mrs. Holloway, we have a problem. And suddenly, the game had changed completely. The arrest happened on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after the police investigation started, after they'd tracked down 12 other families Vanessa had scammed, after they'd frozen her bank accounts and found nearly $40,000 in fraudulent rental income. Tom called me with the news. Margaret, I thought you should know. Vanessa was arrested this morning. Wire fraud, identity theft, a bunch of other charges I can't even pronounce. Gregory's a mess. I sat down slowly, phone pressed to my ear, feeling something strange wash over me. Not satisfaction. Not quite. Something colder and sadder and more final than that. Is Gregory being charged too?
No.
They determined he didn't know what she was doing. Used his phone to check the rental site once, but there's no evidence he was involved in setting it up or collecting money. He's clean. Legally, anyway.
Clean.
What a word. Like you could wash off betrayal with ignorance. The story made local news. Local woman arrested for rental property fraud. They didn't use my name, but they used Harbor Rest's address, and people in town put it together fast enough. I got calls. Neighbors I barely knew checking to make sure I was okay. Tom's wife bringing over casserole. My book club showing up with wine and sympathy and barely concealed curiosity. Gregory filed for separation 3 days after Vanessa's arrest. Tom told me that too, voice careful like he was handling explosives. He's devastated, Margaret. Keeps saying he didn't know, that he trusted her, that he can't believe what she did. Did he ask about me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Silence. Then, quietly. Every day. He asks every day, but he's too ashamed to call. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate, didn't feel the triumph I thought I'd feel watching Vanessa's fraud exposed and her perfect life crumble. Instead, I mourned. For the son I'd lost somewhere along the way. For the family we'd been before greed and manipulation twisted everything into something unrecognizable. For Harold, who'd never see his boy again, never know how badly things had fallen apart. The ocean kept crashing against the rocks below Harbor Rest. Steady, relentless, unbothered by human drama. I found myself standing on the porch a lot those weeks, just watching the waves, letting the sound wash through me like a baptism. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It whispers. It whispers in the click of handcuffs on wrists that thought they were untouchable. In the quiet satisfaction of knowing you protected what mattered. In the hard-won peace of a home that's finally, truly yours. Vanessa's trial was scheduled for spring. Her lawyer was fighting the charges, but with 12 victims and a paper trail that might as well have been written in neon, her chances looked about as good as a sandcastle against high tide. I didn't plan to attend. Didn't need to see her face again, see the anger or the tears or whatever mask she'd wear to court. The law would handle her now. My part was done. Gregory was a different story. A harder story. Because even after everything, after the forgery and the betrayal and the fraud, he was still my son. Still the boy who'd held my hand on his first day of kindergarten. Still the man who looked like his father when he smiled, back when he still knew how to smile.
Part of me wanted to reach out.
The mother part, the part that couldn't stop loving him even when I wanted to. But the rest of me remembered those whispers through the walls. Remembered him standing silent while Vanessa calculated my worth. Remembered that forged signature in handwriting I'd taught him. Forgiveness wasn't simple. Love wasn't enough. And sometimes, the kindest thing you could do was let someone sit with the weight of what they'd done until they understood it all the way down to their bones. But even after the storm passed, one question stayed with me, kept me up at night, followed me through my days like a ghost I couldn't shake. Could I ever forgive my son? If you've ever been torn between love and betrayal, between wanting to rebuild and needing to protect yourself, leave a heartbreak emoji in the comments. Because this choice? It's the hardest one I've ever had to make. Gregory came to Harbor Rest on a Saturday morning, 2 years after Vanessa's arrest. Showed up without warning, standing on my porch with gray in his hair that hadn't been there before, and eyes that looked older than his 43 years. I was in the garden, Harold's garden now, the one I'd finally learned to maintain, pulling weeds and talking to the roses like they could hear me. Maybe they could. Plants always listen better than people anyway. Mom. His voice cracked on the word. I looked up slowly, dirt under my fingernails, Harold's old hat shading my face from the sun. For a long moment, I just stared at him. This stranger who looked like my son. This man who'd helped destroy everything and was now standing here asking for something he might not deserve. Gregory. Can we talk? Please. I stood up, bones creaking, wiping my hands on my jeans. You drove 5 hours to ask me that? I've driven up here 17 times in the past 2 years, he said quietly. Turned around every time. Today I made myself get out of the car. The wind carried salt from the ocean, mixed with the smell of roses and fresh earth. Around us, Harbor Rest stood solid and unchanged, exactly as it should be. Vanessa? I asked. Sentenced to 3 years. She's been out for 4 months. We're divorced. She moved to Arizona to live with her sister. I nodded slowly. And you? Therapy. A lot of therapy. A new job. A different life. He swallowed hard. And trying to figure out how to live with what I did to you. We stood there in the garden. the silence stretching between us like an ocean of its own. Part of me wanted to slam the door, tell him it was too late, he'd made his choice, and he'd have to live with it alone. But the other part, the part that remembered reading him bedtime stories and teaching him to ride a bike and holding him when his heart got broken the first time, that part was tired of being angry. I can't promise anything, I said finally. I can't promise I'll ever forget what happened or that we'll go back to how things were. That Gregory and that Margaret? They're gone. I know. His eyes were wet. I'm not asking for that. I'm just asking for a chance to be in your life again. Even a small corner of it. Even just phone calls on holidays. Anything, Mom. I'll take anything. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw genuine remorse. The kind that lives in your bones, that changes how you walk through the world, that teaches you who you are when you strip away all the excuses. Come inside, I said. I'll make coffee. We'll talk. But Gregory? This is the only chance you get. No more Vanessas. No more schemes. No more putting anyone ahead of your integrity. You understand me? Yes, ma'am. His voice shook with relief. We sat on the porch with our coffee, watching the ocean, talking carefully around the wounds that hadn't quite healed. It wasn't comfortable, wasn't easy, wasn't anything like it used to be, but it was honest. And maybe that was enough to start rebuilding from. He came back the next month, and the month after that. Slow visits, careful conversations, the tentative reconstruction of something that would never be what it was, but might become something different. Something smaller but truer. I'd heard rumors about Vanessa through the grapevine. She tried to start over in Arizona, but her reputation followed her like a shadow. No one trusted her. No one wanted her around. Last I heard, she was working retail and living alone in a studio apartment, all that designer polish stripped away by consequences she'd spent a lifetime thinking she could avoid. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't feel happy about it either.
Just tired.
Tired of anger and revenge and all the energy it took to hate someone who'd already destroyed herself. One afternoon, while Gregory was visiting his 5th visit in 6 months, the most I could handle, I framed something and hung it above the fireplace. The welcome letter. The one from the trust. The one that had broken Vanessa's scheme and protected my home. Really, Mom? Gregory asked, staring at it. That's what you want to look at every day? It's a reminder, I said simply, that I'm stronger than people think, that I can protect what matters. That love doesn't mean being a doormat.
He was quiet for a long time.
Then, I'm sorry I ever made you need that reminder. Me too, baby. Me too. The sun set behind us, painting the ocean in shades of gold and amber. Harbor Rest creaked and settled around us, solid and safe and mine. All mine. Gregory left before dark. Hugged me at the door, careful and respectful of the boundaries I'd built. Next month, he asked hopefully. Next month, I agreed. Because peace, my friends, is the best revenge of all. Not the peace of never being hurt. Not the peace of pretending everything's fine when it's shattered. But the peace of knowing you stood up for yourself. The peace of protecting what you love. The peace of forgiving on your terms, in your time, without letting anyone rush or manipulate or guilt you into it. I rocked in Harold's chair that evening, watching the stars come out one by one. Somewhere in the darkness, the ocean sang its eternal song. Steady, unbothered, cleansing. Sometimes the sweetest sound is silence after the storm. The quiet that comes when the fighting's done and the dust has settled and you're still standing in your own home, on your own terms, with your dignity intact. I'd protected Harbor Rest. Protected myself. Protected the memory of the man who'd loved me enough to give me one last gift after he was gone.
And, in the end?
That was worth more than any relationship that required me to make myself smaller. Worth more than fake smiles and false peace. Worth more than a son who couldn't stand up for what was right. Gregory might find his way back. Or he might not. But either way, I'd be here. In Harold's house. Watching Harold's ocean. Living the life we'd dreamed about in those quiet moments when forever seemed possible. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the fight. It's knowing you are willing to fight it all. If this story touched your heart, If it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, if it showed you that quiet justice is still justice, then I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel for more tales like this one. Stories where karma always finds its way home, where the underestimated show their strength, where quiet people remind the world never to mistake silence for weakness. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single story. And please share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories matter. Your experiences inspire others. Someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone, that they can stand up for themselves too, that being kind doesn't mean being weak. This family we're building here, it's for everyone who's ever been underestimated, everyone who's ever had to fight for their peace, everyone who knows that the best revenge is living well on your own terms. Welcome to the family. There are more stories coming, stories of justice, of karma, of people who fought back and won. Don't miss them, because in the end, we all deserve our harbor rest, our place of peace, our reminder that we're worth fighting for. And I'll be right here, rocking in Harold's chair, watching the sunset, waiting to tell you the next story of how the quiet ones changed everything.